On a Friday night in February 1983, a man with a knife walks into this Texas convenience store. The documentary at the death house door shows the actual scene where a lone clerk was working. The screaming woman was Wanda Lopez in her call to the police before she was killed. Police arrest and charge this man with a murder, an ex-convict named Carlos de Luna. Reverend Carl Pickett was chaplain on Texas death row for 13 years. He is the one who escorted de Luna to the death chamber in December 1989. Pickett says police were drawn to the ex-convict, ignoring evidence that another man might have committed the crime. Pickett watched 94 others executed. He says, even though he believes many of them were guilty, no one should be put to death. He tells his story in the documentary, directed by Peter Gilbert and Steve James.
It is hard to tell anybody, even the meanest person, it is time to go. We're 10 steps away from the gurney. Many of the inmates who were strapped down with their arms spread out said, "I feel like I'm on a cross."
9 years later, in another convenience store in rural Virginia, the owners faced 2 armed men who walked in and opened fire. Patricia Vaughn was shot 4 times, drowning in her own blood. Her husband, Lawrence Vaughn, was shot twice and survived. He still carries in his body the bullets that came from Kevin Green's gun, and Vaughn says his life has never been the same.
Well, look what he took away from me. He took my friends, my business, my store, my wife. And we got paid taxes as long as we lived to take care of him.
Green was executed by lethal injection at the Greensville Correctional Center on May 27th. Lawrence says his wife's killer deserved to die. His daughter, Marsha Brown Vaughn, agrees.
Even for the people who aren't for the death penalty, I hope they sit back and take a moment to realize how that victim feels when they're in that position. Because it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to do. I mean, the last thing that these people see is a gun pointed at them. I hope this will be a closure for us, to start over a new chapter, to know that my mother's killer is no longer a threat in our minds.
Anti-death penalty activist Carol Pickett insists capital punishment is not the answer.
We have a fellow in prison. He was executed, and within 2 years, his sister killed 4 people and his son killed 3 people. It doesn't work.
But David Albo, chairman of the Justice Committee in the Virginia House of Delegates, says the death penalty is about fairness.
Because if we're going to carry out the ultimate punishment, we're going to make sure that person got a fair trial.
Reverend Pickett of Texas tells a different story.
Then I began to see that the type of person who was being executed, primarily black or brown, many of them mentally ill. And then the biggest thing I began to see that a lot of these people were innocent. Death penalty is an irreversible mistake.
Even so, Lawrence Vaughn and Marsha Brown Vaughn say this argument is not convincing enough to end capital punishment for killers such as Kevin Green. Penelope Poulou, VOA News.